So let's move on to the next talk, which is going to be the talk is going to be on AWS Glue Data Brew, which is basically a visual data preparation tool that enables users to clean and sanitize data without any code. So Sanchit is actually an AWS APN ambassador, and he's a lead architect at Quantify. He has over 6 years of experience with designing, building distributed architecture on AWS. He's also up secure and distributed platforms on AWS using infrastructure as code. He's also a DevOps sec admin. And welcome Sanchit, who's going to do a talk on Brew. Welcome, Sanchit.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. Have a wonderful good afternoon for everyone. And it's been a learning for everyone, right? I've also seen a couple of speakers from morning. They have done really best out of it. The sessions were really interesting. And thank you, ACD team, for organizing this session. It's really amazing to see the effort that has been put out all year. So as Faisal mentioned, today's session will be around Data Brew, which is a service which AWS has launched a year back. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I hope my screen is visible to you guys. And today's agenda in this session, we will be talking about the introduction of Data Brew, what's exactly Data Brew about it, advantages, its functionality, then an overview how exactly the entire platform look like when you have Data Brew in the system, what can be the source, how it can play around in and out. Then we'll have a quick demo to ensure that you guys understand how to work around with Glue. And at the last, we'll have a Q&A session to ensure that you have a proper communication, a proper learning session for you guys. And if you have any queries, I'll be happy to answer that now post the session, even offline. So let's jump straight to my introduction. My name is Sanchit. I am a lead architect at Quantify and an AWS ambassador. I love to work on things on AWS, on different services around data, platform, security. Along with that, I also love to contribute in community, like different user groups, giving sessions around the learnings, what we get from industry, passing on to the upcoming bright mindset, so they can understand, they follow the best practices, and they learn the things with proper security and proper mindset. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can reach out to me on Twitter and GitHub. I'm actively available in all these forums. So if you have any doubts outside this session or any other thing, how to start with cloud or how to have your journey or any other help you need, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to assist you there. Now let's move towards what is Glue Data Brew, right? So generally, most of the people are working on the data side of it, right? Whether you're working on ML models, whether you're designing any sorts of visualization, BI charts, or let's say you're writing an ETL pipeline. Most of the people or most of the time that has been spent is around in the data preparation. 50% of the time a person spends when it comes to dealing with data is understanding that data, exploring the data, and give a name or a shape of that data, right? How my data should look like. That's the entire activity a person do 50% of the time, whether you're writing a machine learning model to it, or whether you're doing any sorts of visualization, or you're writing an ETL. Without understanding your data, it's really difficult that the outcome is going to be what you're looking for. With that need, AWS come up with Glue Data Brew, a service which is a no-code tool where you don't have to worry about any single line of code, any sorts of programming knowledge. If you know how to bake or how to laminate your data, that's what it is. Glue provides you simple, very interactive UI with drag and drop capability and 250 plus transformation, things like pivot, things like split the column, merge the column, change the timestamp, those kinds of day in, day out kind of transformation out of the box without even lining a single line of code, right? So that's the beauty about Glue. And let's first understand why we need Glue, right? So as I mentioned, 50% of the time our data analysts just spend for prepping up the data, which is a time-consuming activity. We all know that we run in a very fast world. We always love the output, but the entire thing that takes place in the back end to prep the data or the time that's spent to analyze the data, we want to minimize that, right? And again, it's very difficult around it. You need to get the right tool, or you have to pay for license cost and all other stuff. So it's very expensive in nature. And at the last sense, it is very heavily tightly coupled with the code. Any change in your data will also implicate in your the code base, right? Let's say, for example, you need to add one more column in your audit. That's one addition of column will lead to multiple rounds of iteration in the backend. You need to change your code, you need to test your code, test in different environment, promote it, right? So bare minimum, even if you have a dedicated team to do it, it will take a minimum of 2 weeks of effort even to add one addition of column if you follow a proper test-driven approach, right? Where exactly Glue comes into or Data Brew comes into as a survivor to minimize the entire backend or entire route that takes place to have the elegant output ready for you guys, right? And the things which you do in and out, like profiling your data, exploring, analyzing, cleansing, or automating that as a job, all those are the capability even Glue supports it, right? Without even a single line of code. That's exactly what is Glue Data Brew and how it generally helps people. This is the overview around how exactly the end-to-end system work when it comes to data brew, right? On the left-hand side, you see a different data source, which are just limited to like your data lake, local files, S3, catalog, Redshift, and JDBC. In the center, you will see Data Brew, where you can provide your data, you can build recipe, the instruction, how you want to massage your data, you can perform different joins operation, and then you schedule so it can run in an automated fashion. And here are the couple of functionalities, as I mentioned, 250 plus built-in transformation. Those are limited, a couple of them, left join, right join, split the column, merge the column, drop a column, lowercase, uppercase, those kinds of different functionalities it provides. What you get as an artifact from Glue is a cleansed data store, a recipe which you can reuse again and again, data profile, you can understand the quality of the data, and then last is a lineage, a visual workflow. You can understand how your data was processed throughout the entire journey of Glue. And at the outcome you get, which is the prep data, you can plug to QuickSight for analyzing it. You can plug to your machine learning model. You can also have Glue ETL on top of it to do any transformation part of the stuff, right? Heavy lifting transformation. Or you can load to things like Redshift, or you can have it in ETL pipeline, right? You can do numerous kinds of functionality once the data is there. And the entire process is being done in a very seamless manner, which can be automated, which can be scheduled, and it can run without any sort of human intervention, without a single line of code. So that's the beauty of working on Data Brew. Let's understand the advantage, right? I've called out the advantage even in few slides. Let's try to understand from a right to left direction, from a clockwise perspective, what are the different advantages. First, it's a serverless data prep, right? So when you talk about data brew, you're not launching an EC2 instance, or let's say any EMR cluster, or any AWS services, right? You just have to work in and out on AWS Data Brew console. It's a serverless in nature. So let's say today you plug 1,000 rows, tomorrow it's 1 million, next day is 10 million. You don't have to worry about it. Data Brew will scale as per the volume of the data. So, and you just have to pay whatever we do in a serverless kind of a manner, pay only for what you use kind of stuff. So that's a big advantage when it comes to working on data. The second part is around connect to different data sources. So as we saw in the previous slide, you can connect to any JDBC source, any of your data lake, flat files, S3, like all possible source, all possible formats when a person needs an industry, that what connector is provided by Data Brew. It provides an seamless, no-code 250 plus built-in transformation. The best thing, which even I like much about Data Brew, is it can integrate with your data pipeline. Let's say you already have data pipeline, you can integrate in that existing data pipeline with having APIs, right? You can write APIs in any of the programming language, and this API will more act like an orchestrator to trigger your job, to get the status of the job, those kinds of stuff, right? You don't need the code for transformation, but if you want to orchestrate the job, then you can use that. Or you can also use the schedule capability provided by Brew that can work as a standalone. So those both the functionalities are provided by Data Brew. And at the last, the visual data lineage. It gives you a very clean workflow to understand how or what was the source, how that source was massaged over a period of time, what outcome it generated at each step, and finally, where did you wrote the output of it. So let's say if you run the Glue job mid of the night and you're not available, it's an automated way. you need to have this clear lineage to understand the next day that, okay, if something went wrong, where it went wrong, why it went wrong, right? So those kinds of clean workflow is also provided by DataBrew. Next, I will talk about a couple of core concepts, right? These are the core concepts, even it will help us when we are doing a demonstration. So let me start from the left side of it. So first is a data set, right? It's pretty simple to understand. Data set is nothing but a source data. We spoke about the JDBC, Redshift, S3, those kinds of source data, what you will be providing for DataBrew to process or transform it. Project is more like your workspace, a folder where you will be doing all sorts of operation on that data set which you provided. Next is the recipe. Now recipe is more like your instruction or a manual which you're giving to DataBrew that, okay, hey, given this data set, here are the list of transformation or here are the list of processing you need to do on that data, which can be anything, lowercase to uppercase, or let's say split a date column into 3 different date, month and year, those kinds of various kinds of transformation. The next, if you move towards the right side, it's a next job comes as a job. Now job is like a package. As I mentioned, Glue also provides you the capability to automate the entire execution. With help of job, you can execute this entire package whenever you schedule it. Next is a data lineage. We understood it very well in the previous slide. The clean visual workflow is called as data lineage. And at the last, the important or the core is data profile. Profile is nothing but a kind of a report that help you to understand how or what is your quality of the data. Is the quality is good? How many is the null value, missing value? How many data type like string or columns, integer data type columns? Those kinds of detailed analysis you get in a form of a lineage. Okay. So here we end about the theoretical section about what is DataBrew, advantages, and couple of core concepts. Next, we will switch over to the AWS Console so we can understand how exactly in a real life DataBrew works, and it can help us when it comes to the execution perspective. So first, what I will do, right, as a step one, I will launch a cloud formation. I will walk you through what exactly is this cloud formation also. So let me upload a template, and yes, whatever the scripts, the presentation, what I'm presenting currently or what I will be using throughout the demo, I will be uploading into the GitHub, and the links are already embedded in the presentation. So you don't have to worry about that how I can get the scripts and all. So let's say I name the cloud formation. I keep all the option as is as a default, and I click on next. On the review page also, I click next and I give my approve that, okay, I'm good to launch IAM. So this cloud formation will take a minute and a half to finish. In meantime, I'll switch over to walk you through what exactly this cloud formation will be doing, right? So this is the same cloud formation what I have launched or deployed here, right? So this cloud formation at the first step, if I close this, first step it is launching an S3 bucket. So we'll need one S3 bucket to store our file, to store the output, or store any intermediate output what we get. So that bucket is what we are creating. We are creating a policy here. This policy is giving us very precise permission to get, put, delete the object list, and put cross, right? So very list privilege kinds of access has been given and specific to the bucket which we have deployed here. So you can see from an access perspective also, you don't need much access, like very limited access which we can give. The next is around we are defining the role for and attaching the policies what we have defined here. And the last, I'm printing the output so I can refer that output in my demonstration. So this is a simple cloud formation what I have deployed. And if I refresh it here, you will see in a fraction of a minute, this should be done. It's currently launching your IAM stack, which we can also go and check in the resource section that it launch an IAM role, IAM policy, and an S3 bucket as we look into the template. So as we can see, the template is done. And if I go switch back to the output, here I have the role name and I have the S3 bucket to it. Next, what I will do is I will go back to the S3 console and I will search for this bucket so I can upload my dummy data set for this demonstration. So what we'll do in meantime, until this is loading, we'll just copy this bucket name. It's starting with demo ACD2021. Okay. So as we can see, the bucket name which we have just deployed is demo ACD2021. It's loading. What I'll do is I create a folder and I'll click on create folder. The folder is created. What we'll do is next is upload a file to it. So this is a file. This is a COVID data set which I have downloaded from an healthcare health website. It's a public data set which is available. I'll upload this data set. So as you can see, the data set is uploaded. So data set is uploaded as a demo ACD2021 and its name is under raw file all states history.csv. Next, what I'll do is I'll go to the data brew console now, okay, which you can directly search here and you can get it. On data brew console, I'll go on the project from the left navigation, or you can directly click on, if you haven't deployed anything, you can go and click on the create project from the landing page. So here on the landing page, I will give a name to it. Let's say I'm giving a name as, so I'm giving this as a project name. If I go back to the core concept, project is a workspace. Okay, so I'm giving a name to my workspace. Similarly, when I'm giving a name, by default, it gives me a recipe name, which I can change. Just to call out, this recipe will be a blank recipe, a default one, which is created when you create a new project, which you can change as you start working around it. Next, I will create a data set. This data set is from my previous run. I will go ahead and create a new data set so we can understand how to define a data set. I give a name to it. Please ensure that you give a logical name so you can identify your resources later. So I select my bucket. As I mentioned, it is under raw file, all states history.csv. So this is a file which I've selected here. So as I select the file, it automatically detects what format it is, how the delimiter it is, right? The first row is a header, so I select yes. I leave the remaining option, which are optional, as sampling, tag. Tag is like the normal tagging policy what we give for the resources as is. And from the drop down, I will select the IAM role. Please ensure that you select the right IAM role because we have mapped the IAM role to a specific bucket. So I click on create project. Now, this is a very interesting thing where I want to walk you through is when I'm creating a project, right? This entire loading time will take like a minute or two. What it is doing behind the scenes, as you can see the messaging that is coming on the screen, right? Provisioning the compute. So as I mentioned, it's a serverless service, but behind the scene, it launch a compute for that time frame where it is analyzing the entire data, right? Where you will be doing all the operation. That operation get execute on that compute. So that first it launched the compute. Second, now it's launching all the algorithms, right? So Glue Data Brew is based on NLP machine learning algorithm. So anything which they need behind the scene, they set up on that compute. Now what they are doing next is preparing the data frame. So the CSV file what we uploaded, it is preparing, it is mapping that into the data frame. So it can analyze now the data set, right? What data set we have given. So they can analyze the data set. They can understand the different relationship, different kinds of schema and other stuff. And now it's generating the data statistics. And once this is done, it will just give us the entire view of the data, that the data which you uploaded. Here is a default kinds of analysis which you can understand that data. So it will just take fraction of a minute to finish up the entire processing behind the scene. And again, these are the standard time. I would say this is not in variance to your entire data or other stuff like, okay, I've had a heavy load of data or I have less data. This is a standard time frame it takes, right? So I'll close this. Now, as I mentioned, right, when I've done nothing for now. I've just plugged my data source to it, and you can see the kind of different narration or interpretation which I get of my data set, right? I can easily get, okay, what is my data set around it? How's my distribution of data look like? And this is again the tabular view of you. If I go to the schema, you can see the different schema part of also of how the data how my data look like. What are the different columns to it, different data types, the quality of data, the basic data, the value distribution. This is the basic thing which I get without writing a code. Now you can understand, like if you have already been playing a role of data analyst or a data science, you'll understand this. For doing this basic stuff also, how much pain it takes to write the code, right? You might to use certain libraries like pandas and all other stuff to play around with it. And here, without a single code, you can get those functionalities. Also, as I've seen in the industry, when you plug a raw data set, right, it's not necessary that you process all the columns, right? You will only process the interested column. You create a, in short, you create a subset or an extract out of it. So those kinds of capability also you can do. You can show, you can hide, you can do any other functionality. You can also change the data type of that column. Those kinds of, all kinds of functionality you can do here, right? Next, what we will be doing is we will be going on the profile screen and I'll create a run data profile, right? So by default, the job name is here, which is fine. You can run on full data set or you can run on the custom, right? It depends what kind of thing you're doing. Let's say if you're doing machine learning, for sure, you will do on partial of data set. If you're doing a BI and all, visualization and all those work, you will want to look forward to the entire data set. So let's say I'll go for the full data set of it. Now I'll go as an outcome, right? Where I want to store the output. So this is the bucket that I have. What I'll just give is, I'll just add a meaningful folder to it. You can also encrypt if you have the sensitive data. You can also provide an encryption out of the box. Rest of the options I'm going to keep as is. And again, as I was talking about the schedule, you can create an automated way to trigger this job, right? Scheduler. Next, I will provide the permission. The permission is the same what we have deployed via CloudFormation. And I'll click on create and run job. Now, this click and run job will take somewhere around like 3 to 4 minutes to be ready. What I will do in interest of time, I'll switch to the next sample, which I have already have it, right? So in the previous, the new one, what we have created, I have not demonstrated to you a couple of things, which I'll walk you through now in the meantime. So this is the entire grid view, right? In a tabular format, you get a different analysis of your data. Now, how to generate a recipe? Now, it's very important that you generate the recipe because that's the core logic which you can plug or reuse. It's very important to understand how to generate a recipe, right? So for an example, let's say this is a column. I want to convert this column into the entire lowercase part of it, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go on format. First of all, these are the different kinds of functionality what you can do. Duplicate, delete, move, hide, like these are the 250 of plus functionalities are there. So in the format, I will change to, let's say, uppercase, which is already an uppercase. So as you can see, it's smart enough there to understand that it's already uppercase. What I'll do next is I'll just go and I'll make it to lowercase. So I think it just got stuck a second. Just give me a minute. So yeah, state to lowercase all the values, and either you can apply for all the rows, which is 500, or you can filter and apply for specific rows. We will apply for all the rows, right? And you can see it's just previewing currently. It's just processing it, and it's just fraction of second. I have to just get all the column, state column as, let's say, lowercase, right? Now, let's say if you want to do a second operation around it, here we can see a couple of columns as null, right? Like it's null values. And if I want to make it as this is an integer data type column, so null, I want to make it all as 0 for now. Again, you need to be very sure when you're making the changes in the column, because that may give a different meaning to your data set. So let's say what I'm doing is remove or fill missing values. So what I'll do is fill with a custom one, and I'll do as, let's say, 0. Apply to all the rows. Right? You can immediately see that in a less than a minute time, all the null values got replaced by 0. And then last, what you can do, you can publish this, or you can also export and publish, right? You can download it as a JSON or as an YAML, or if you want to publish it, let's say if you want to use this across your entire peers or entire your developer team, you can publish this, which get recorded in the recipe section, and your other peers can also use this recipe. So this is how the recipe is generated. Let me go back to my previous execution And if I try to refresh the screen, hopefully by now the profile would have been completed. So it's just loading the screen. Let's wait for a minute, a few seconds to wait to finish up the complete loading. Okay. Okay. So as we can see, it's still running around it. We can see that this is a profiling job which we have deployed. It's running around the stuff, right? So until it's running, I'll just show you how exactly the data profiling output look like, right? So this is how the data profile output would look like where you have the different number of rows, the different number of columns, the valid number of cell, heat map of it, right? How exact each value look like around it, and as well as the compare value distribution, like each of the stuff, like how your value look like. The important thing is this bottom column summary, where you get each column wise the statistics, how many is a total valid point missing around it. Where you can easily get, right, 850 was missing around it, the distinct value of it, and other kinds of details, which is very helpful when you're analyzing column by column, right? So those kinds of input also you get here. And also based on that, you can get the lineage also. If you want to understand the workflow, how it executed. So this is how it executes the entire data set of it, right? That it took from S3, it ran the data brew, it generated the entire profile and saved that output into the S3 bucket where we have defined around it. Now let's get back to the job of it. And under job, let's go to the profile. And as we can see, this got succeeded now. And this is the same output what we'll get here also. There's no difference in terms of the output, how the output will look, right? So this is how the output is consist of, right? As a next step, what I'll show is I'll go ahead and I will define a recipe to it. So here, first I have to do is upload a recipe. I'm just giving a demo. I'm selecting as choose recipe from here. The recipe I've already imported what is been there, right? I've previously defined that recipe and will go create and publish recipe. Now I will switch back. Recipe is a manual instruction, right? As I mentioned. Now this manual instruction need to be applied on the data set. So this is exactly what is there, right? So I'll click on continue. It's not going to be loading that time. It's going to be faster. What we'll do is in meantime, we'll just wait for this to complete. As you can see, this is completed. I'll go back here. I'll add on import recipe. So we will import the recipe which we have just defined few seconds back. So this is a recipe what we have defined. I will click next. And here you can either append to your existing recipe or you can overwrite. You can do any of that stuff, right? So I'll click next. And this recipe, it will validate against your data set, right? So it will do things like change the format of date, change the state, missing values, split the entire date into 3 columns, year, month, and date. So previously what we had is total 41 column. After this recipe is executed, you will see that it get changed to 43 and the month will get replaced by a March wherever it was invalid, right? So those kinds of different kinds of transformation what we have done in almost like very near real time. So I click on import. As you can see now, it is import the data which is importing and it's apply all the changes. So as we were talking about all the changes, we can verify the changes. Total column is 43. It's a year. The entire month got replaced by a March. The state got lowercase. And what was the another operation? What we had is debt probable. If we go here, I think please. Yeah. all the missing values got replaced by 0. So those kinds of different operations, what you can do here in terms of the stuff, right? And last, you can also define here the job. This job is doing the same thing, right? What we have done manually on the console, the same way if you want to run in an automated fashion and you want to schedule it, you can create a job and you can run it on that same fashion, and the output is going to be the same what we have understood so far, right? So here I end my demo. The last thing I want to walk you through is the best thing which I love, an interesting thing. This is a very simple, small functionality of AWS, right? What's new? It becomes very difficult sometimes to keep a tab on each and everything that comes out, right? But with help of this what's new functionality in the console, you don't have to worry about going through different documentation. Any new announcement that comes up, right? And what it's going to apply under for specific to Data Brew, you can track it from this console itself, right? This is a very small thing, but a very beautiful thing to keep yourself up to date with the new stuff that comes up, right, as a part of this service. So here I end my demo. Let me recap quickly what we have understood in the demo, right? We first went through the prerequisites part of it. Next, we created the project, defined the data set to it, the entire analysis that takes place, explored the data set. We understood the different views of it, the schema, grid view, the entire profiling thing, what we have done, the heat map kind of output. We have understand the output of it. We upload the recipe to ensure that we are prepping up the data set. Last, we understood how to create a glue job, right? And this is how the glue job is executed. You will see the output stored into S3 bucket, which you can analyze. We have also viewed the lineage. And you can also track from a CloudTrail perspective. Similarly, how you do other services, you can go in CloudTrail. You can do the same here. So that's all about from my session. Hope you guys had an interesting time here and a good learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanchit. That was a wonderfully informative session and quite detailed. So I just want to quickly mention the quiz for this session is open for a few more minutes. So if anyone has not taken it yet, please do. And let's quickly check if there is any questions on the chat. Yes, in fact, there is one. So we have Yogesh who's asking, does Data Brew use any distributed framework behind the scenes like Spark? If not, then I guess I would take a good amount of time to apply the recipe for 30 plus terabyte.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Yogesh, I would say. So when it comes to behind the scene under umbrella, right, it's not just uses the distributed framework for processing, it also uses machine learning NLP algorithm, right, to give that scale of compute, to give that the different capabilities of no code capabilities. Those complex things are already being taken care here to ensure that as a user, we get a very seamless experience and we achieve what we are looking for. So those, not just the Spark, I would say from distributed perspective, the other machine learning are also embedded to give a seamless experience to the end user.
Thank you. Just waiting for a few more questions. And while we wait, Sanchit, if we were to do this manually in terms of cleaning up all of this data, how would you compare it to doing all of this manually and doing it through Data Brew?
So if I talk about my personal experience, right? I mean, from an analytical company, I would say, Quantify is a data science analytical company. So doing this manually, I would say it easily takes like 2 to 3 weeks, even when you're having the Spark, right? Because you have to do first understand the data, write the code, test that code before you get the actual final outcome, right? So even if you get an experienced guy who is very good with Spark and all, it's going to easily take you with 2 to 3 weeks of data. And again, the volume of data also matters here. So with that stuff, I would say with 2 to 3 weeks is a very minimum curve when you're doing a manual. And if we talk about with Data Brew, it's just that if you understand the services and all the functionalities, less than a week, I would say you can easily get into it. And this is the same comparison, I would say, we have already applied in one of our existing project, which is in production. We have seen the difference where we were doing it manually previously and versus what we are doing in a current fashion and via Data Brew.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you once again, Sanchit, for this wonderful talk. Let's move on to the next speaker.
Build. Go. There is no compression important workloads. Dance like nobody's watching. 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 Encrypt like everyone is. There has never been a better time to build. 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 There has never been a better time to build. You run it. You build it. 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 You run it. You build. You run. You build. You run it. You build. You run. You run.